Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Better Together. It is Thursday, April 11th, and my name is Chris Densel. I am a licensed clinical social worker and a certified Optavia coach, and I'm thrilled to host tonight's discussion. And I'm really kind of hoping that this will be interactive. I do have a few PowerPoint slides just for inspiration and a jumping off point. But tonight's topic, we'll get into in just a second, is about giving yourself permission for new beginnings. But before we get into the meat of the discussion, I just wanted to start with a few announcements. Number one is we have a date on the calendar to get together in White Plains, New York. This is going to be May 18th. It is a Saturday for a trilogy meeting. So save the date, put it on your calendars. Everybody who's in the general area and can come in, or heck, why not just take a flight and come in anyway. We're starting to have people do that. So we'd love to have you. So May 18th, it's going to be typically, your 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock time frame. The details will come out shortly, but do save that date on your calendar. And the second thing I want to announce is, if you haven't seen it already, JC's Facebook Live announcement on Movers and Shapers. Now, Movers and Shapers is sort of a coaching page, but this is sort of exciting news for the company, and so wanted everybody in the room tonight to hear about it. And that is, our training is about to get a lot easier, our coach training. So the big announcement is that nationwide coach training is going to take place after the Monday night leadership call. So leadership call is at 8 p.m. on Monday nights, and then right at 8:30, we're going to start having national trainings. And this is really open to clients to participate in. If you have an interest, if it's kind of been something that you've been interested in and you want to check it out, talk to the person who introduced you to the program, and they'll tell you all about it. But it's a great way of kind of plugging in and seeing what the coaching side of things looks like. It's about to get really exciting. So those are just a couple of little announcements. So I'd like to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. I think I can go ahead and do that because I really wanted to show you a few things that I pulled together on this topic tonight. So I just have to kind of move a few little things out of the way to show this. So again, I wanted to talk about giving yourself permission for a new beginning. So I really hope that this topic is relevant for every single person in the room, whether you are brand new on program, whether you are 2 weeks into your program, whether you're a few months into your program, whether you're in the optimal health stage, whether you're a coach. I think that if you look back at your journey, you'll probably recognize that there are moments that maybe you needed a little bit of a reset, and that's just part of being a human being and part of the growth process. But sometimes it can be kind of a painful experience, and sometimes we can get in our own way. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit tonight. So put a 1 in the chat if you've ever gotten in your own way in terms of needing to have a little bit of a reset and having some struggle with that. And here's another example of what, I thought was interesting is that sometimes we're in need of a reset when we feel old and weary and worn out from, say, yo-yo dieting. And I thought this picture really kind of looked like that, how exhausting it is to be on a roller coaster or in a merry-go-round or yo-yo dieting. But I want you to know, and I think everybody in the room would agree, that there is hope that we can have a fresh, new beginning, even in the midst of having been worn out. And I really wanted to talk about that. And, the idea for this discussion really came out of my Great Potential this week because I saw lots of new faces, but I also saw some folks who have just recommitted to their health journey, and they've kind of come out in full transparency and said, look, I've gone through a struggle, but I'm here and I'm recommitting again. So you guys, this is dedicated to you. All right. I think it's really important to talk about and acknowledge the fact that it really is never too late for a new beginning. So I mean this not just our, chronological age, whether you're 21 coming into this program or you're 52 like me coming into this program, or so it's not just about your chronological age. It's really not too late to reset yourself and get on a healthier path. I mean, you could be 85 years old like my mom, getting on a healthier path. It's never too late. But it's also never too late inside of your own journey. So if you've ever been in your journey and maybe have had some struggles and get to a place of desperation and you just feel like maybe it's too late for me, maybe I'm never going to get the hang of this, stop yourself with that thought, because it really is never too late, okay? I think, though, we have to acknowledge that we need to be willing to be a beginner, perhaps every single morning, because we're human beings, and this is sort of progress, not perfection. We may not have a single day where we're 200% on every single action item that we were going to do to honor our health. So I think it's okay to kind of wake up every morning and say, it's a new day, it's a fresh start, and it's my new beginning. And therefore, new beginnings don't feel so scary. You know what I mean? So go ahead and put perhaps a 2 in the chat if you've kind of awakened one morning and you just felt defeated and you just felt like, I can't do it. I'm worn out. I can't do it. I keep making mistakes. Well, I think, again, that it's a locus of control issue. I think it's a mindset issue. And I mean, of course, we can make some corrective steps with logistics. But, as Dr. Anderson talks about, this mindset piece is what really drives the process. Chapter 3 of Habits of Health really talks about how to prevent the yo-yo, in that if we can define our why about creating something positive for ourselves and driving towards that positive thing, as opposed to starting this journey trying to eliminate the negative. And that really just kind of shifts that mindset. And it takes us away from this, I can't do this anymore, to maybe I can do it. We just got to get rid of that T. I think this slide really spoke to me. And I see this in myself, and I see it with my colleagues, and I see it with my clients, because it's a part of being a human being. But this is great advice. Don't let your past define you. Don't let it destroy you. Don't let it defeat you. Let it strengthen you. So I think that many times when we have had a struggle and we acknowledge that we need a reset or a reboot or a new beginning, sometimes we just carry our baggage into the future. And you know what? Guess what, guys? It's really liberating to just let go. Just let that shit go, right? I mean, your past really does not define you. You have the ability to define your future. So let the things in the past go, and you set the course for your future. I can see that there are chats going on, but I have no idea what you guys are saying. So forgive me because I said a bad word. So anyway, here's another thing that I wanted to talk about, and that's toxic shame. So there's a difference between feeling guilty and a difference between feeling shame. Feeling guilty is, I made a mistake and I feel bad about my mistake. Having shame or toxic shame is, I am a mistake. All right. You don't have to put anything in the chat on this, because this one's actually really, really deep and very, very personal and actually very painful. But, I want you to sit there and maybe write a note to yourself and acknowledge whether or not this is an issue with you. We really do not need to carry shame. We're human beings. We're not perfect. We'll always make mistakes. But you are not a flawed human being. You are not a mistake. We make mistakes, but you are not a mistake. And if you can separate those two, I think that the power of your new beginning will take on a new life of itself. So there's this thing that I like to say to my clients, and if you're in the chat, if you're in the room, I can't see you right now because I'm just looking at my PowerPoint. give yourself a little grace, but I think we all say this to each other as well, which is, when you come to a moment of honesty and transparency, like some of us have on My Great Potential, and you're acknowledging that maybe you've had some missteps and your journey kind of went sideways or backwards, it's really important to not grind and shame yourself over it. Like I was just saying, give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little forgiveness. That's really important to separating yourself from the past and moving on in a positive light. But the thing is that it's also a marker in time, in terms of it's a time for change, okay? Because when we have a pattern of having certain slips, we need to pay attention to that. As they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Type yes in the chat if you've ever had that happen to you, where you maybe, continue to have similar slips over and over and over again, and you haven't kind of brought yourself to the table in a moment of honesty and say, you know what, I just can't do XYZ anymore, or I just can't have XYZ in my refrigerator anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. By the way, I learned that Einstein was the author of that quote, and I thought that was really kind of brilliant. Well, because he was brilliant. So this is what I think is really an important takeaway is, yes, give yourself a little grace, leave the remorse, but just bring the wisdom forward with you. So in your new beginning, yes, separate yourself from the past, get rid of the toxic shame, don't let your past define you. So that's leaving the remorse. But it's really, really important to do what Einstein says, which is have a moment where you make some healthy decisions for yourself, that you're not going to keep repeating the same mistakes, or change things up a little bit so that you're not triggered in the same way, or you're not inclined to make the same mistakes. So bring your wisdom forward. So that's the difference between just kind of continuing on slipping and slipping and slipping versus learning from your mistake and having a really healthy new beginning. So some things that I wanted to say on that is, when you are bringing your wisdom forward with you, sometimes it's true that you come to the realization that you have to do what's best for you in your life and not necessarily what's best for everyone else. So an example might be, there's some really deep and profound examples of that, but a very simple example might be, if you have adolescent kids and they love to have potatoes and Dorito chips in the pantry, but those are your trigger foods, really, it's probably best for you to make the decision not to have those kinds of things in your pantry because they're the things that are triggering you. That's a really surface level example of what I'm talking about, but trust me, there's some really very, very, very deep and intensely emotional things that come along with this quote, because sometimes the people that we have hung with are not vibrating at our same frequency any longer. And we recognize it, and it can be painful to make that step without them. But I just wanted to acknowledge that, that's sometimes an important piece of this new beginning puzzle. And I think this is something that Dr. Anderson would really embrace. The secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old things, but on building the new. So, Dr. Anderson likes to talk about, the creation of micro habits of health, and how what we really need to do is crowd out the old habits, the unhealthy habits, with lots and lots and lots and lots of new healthy micro habits of health. And so this slide really kind of speaks to that, when willpower is one thing, and it takes an immense amount of energy to exert willpower throughout the day. But if we focus our new beginning on creating a lot of really wonderful, positive micro habits of health, I think we'll all find that this reset, this new beginning, really flows much better. Finally, I just wanted to also say that this is one thing that really spoke to me. A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not on the branch, but on its wings. Always believe in yourself. Always believe in yourself. You have the power to have a fresh, healthy start. You have the power to have a healthy journey going forward. But guess what? The power is inside of yourself. The power is an internal locus of control. It's not external to you. It's your decision to set the course right. It's your decision to let go of the past. It's your decision to bring the wisdom forward. But believe in yourself, because you can absolutely do this. So that's what I wanted to share tonight. And I would love to open up the discussion a little bit, because I really value the people in this room. I'm seeing some messages here. I love you guys. I would really love to have a discussion about some moments. Just share something from your own journey. Can you identify with anything that I've said? And if so, can you unmute yourself and just go ahead and speak to the group? Anybody? Bueller? Bueller? Okay, Mary Kay?
Chris. I identified with the not keeping the things around that are unhealthy or are trigger foods for you. Mm-hmm. My husband and I have this ongoing battle over almonds. I cannot do 10 almonds.
Right.
So, and I'm in maintenance now. So it's a real problem, and I've asked him to please. So I finally took the almonds and I threw them up into the top. I mean, I'm 5 feet tall. I threw them up about 8 feet up into where I would have to get on a ladder to get them.
Right.
You can get them fairly easily, but I cannot.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing with the almond butter that my sister brought into the house. I just took it and threw it because I can't. It's a trigger for me.
Yeah.
And it's not good for me.
Yeah.
And I've asked them not to bring it in, and it doesn't work. So I just made it inaccessible to me.
There you go. It's my kryptonite too, by the way. Put a 5 in the chat if you have a problem with nuts and nut butters. Yeah. Who else has something that I'm seeing lots of 5s. Who else found something that resonated with them? I'd love to hear from you. Okay, Sharon.
There I am. Okay. So I would say when you were talking about giving yourself some grace, that was a huge sort of weight lifted off of me when, I would say, let's say if I was ill, that was always my thing. If I had a cold or something like that, if I didn't have a good loss through my journey, and Cindy would say that to me, give yourself some grace, and being able to accept that, and I didn't accept it probably the first few times she said it, but finally over months accepting that. And now I say that to my clients as well.
Yeah.
I really felt it was almost, the word's not coming to me, but it was liberating. That's it. It was liberating for me.
Yeah.
To not beat myself up all the time. So
right.
I definitely use that, and I definitely appreciate that.
That's fantastic, Sharon. Yeah, absolutely. I often have thought about, and sometimes I use this little exercise with myself, and sometimes I use it with my clients. What would you say, if given the same scenario, but maybe it's your child, or if you don't have children, maybe it's your niece or your nephew, and they have presented themselves with the same, problem, or they've messed up. Would you chide them like you chide yourself? No. So sometimes it's really important to take a step back and say, okay, what would I say to my own son or daughter? What would I say to my own niece or nephew? Because that's what I really need to say to myself. Give myself a little grace, be a little bit kinder, a little more compassionate to myself, right? Not to be in denial, because again, you want to bring that wisdom forward, but I also need to be compassionate, right? Who else? Anybody else have somebody? Okay, Camille?
I also had to discover, what are my triggers, and then, toss them away. But, the funny thing is, sometimes I've been on the program a while, and you try something new, and you go, whoa, I have a new trigger now. So it's the learning process. I've also, I tell myself, and I tell my clients, I've had a night off the program more than once, and I don't feel good.
Right.
I feel sick. I get a headache. My stomach hurts. I'm running to the bathroom. And so I learned that's a gift, because every time I take a step away, it's really like the lights are flashing of, this is what you don't want, and what you do want. So it became a stepping stone for me to go forward, and it really reinforced my why and my what, and challenged me to look at my life, look at what I'm doing, and to learning, many things about myself. Some of the things you talked about, I struggle with, I am enough. I don't have to think I can't do something, because I can. God created me with everything I need is already in me.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that. I have to have the grace and to just go forward on that and build on that. Not about my old, because there's a lot of junk in my old.
Right.
But there's a lot of wonderful things in my new. And I want to keep my focus there.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Can
Deb?
I add to Camille? Camille, you just put it right on the mark for me, because my triggers are chocolate chips, and I have not had them in the house for a long time. So instead, I'll take an Optavia shake with a brownie, and I suck up the chocolate chips from the bottom and eat them, and they're on plan. Isn't that great?
Right.
But if I go and get out of control and don't feel good, my brain is foggy, my stomach doesn't feel good, I feel really logy, instead of feeling guilty, I am like, whoa, what can I learn from this? And I use that with clients who say, oh, I feel bad, I cheated. And I'm like, no, let's just learn from how did you feel? What was that like? What triggered you? And really take it as an educational piece and not as any guilt, because guilt does nothing for us. It's just an added stress, and some people are stress eaters, and so let's keep the guilt away. And when a lot of people come back as former clients and they want to do this again, and they go, oh, but I gained so much weight. So I'm like, well, so let's talk about, what did you learn? What did you do? And let's tweak it a little bit, because this is all educational, and this is all about learning about yourself and being conscious, and stop, challenge, and choose. So thank you, Camille. Thank you, Chris. This has been great.
That's awesome, Deb. Yep. Those are like, when you have kind of what you both were saying is those, we should just embrace them as teachable moments, right? That's what that is. That's all that is a teachable moment, right? Right. Kelly.
I'm looking at this from a very different perspective. I got into Optavia as a client because I was getting sick and I was overweight. But everything you're talking about here today was my mindset. I grew up being bullied for years when I was a kid. And I always felt bad. I felt misunderstood. And as an adult, I carried that with me. And now I have two beautiful children. They're older, 15 and 19. But just 15 months ago, I carried shame and guilt. And I felt bad about my mistakes, but I allowed myself to feel like I was a mistake. I felt that all those mistakes was because I was a mistake. And that is contagious. So I started labeling myself as such. And I walked on eggshells around everybody just to not hurt anybody or be mean or say the wrong thing. Or, I would try to bring up my children the best I could. And it was never enough. It was never good enough. I was never good enough. I was replaceable. I didn't matter. And believe it or not, this program, this community, and my coach saved my life, really. Yeah, I lost 38 pounds and I'm still holding on to it and I feel great. But I will tell you, seeing the success of my own clients gives me reason and purpose to continue living. And my my position, my role as a mother and a wife, completely different, because I am labeling myself now as worthwhile. So, you know, it's all about everything. Everything you're talking about is about, you know, how you feel about your body, but also about how you feel about yourself. And it's very important. Thank you for sharing.
Kelly, thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
That was really very, very personal, and thank you so much. I mean, I have goosebumps. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else wanted to say anything about this to tie it all up? Yeah, and maybe we'll just leave it at Kelly's story. How about that? Okay. Yeah, somebody's saying the wisdom in this room. Yeah, we've got a lot of wisdom in here, don't we, guys? That's amazing. So I hope everybody has a healthy week. I hope that the things that we talked about tonight gives you a sense of renewal, because everybody is capable of it, and everybody deserves it. And the last thing I want to do is just a few shout outs, because that's our tradition, right? Okay, so this again was an amazing week because we had a lot of new faces on My Great Potential, and I think it's sort of that season, right, where we have a lot of new faces. But at the same time, as I mentioned before, what kind of inspired this is that we have some people who are coming back on program after having some real intense struggles. And so welcome back, everybody. I wanted to give a shout out. Please forgive me for pronouncing things maybe not quite right. Rick Iorlano, he lost 40 pounds, but he gained health. He has no more pain, inflammation, they're gone. That's so exciting. Billy Holder, he passed on the donuts and had cinnamon crunchy O's instead. And he also brought a great laugh to My Great Potential. Flo Scripps, she's down 21 pounds. Lynn Barrett is 7 days in, and she's filling up her jar full of pebbles. Marsha Wilkerson has her feelings prepped and ready to go for the next day with a very kind note to herself. So listen up. On her Ziploc baggie, she wrote, "Eat like you love yourself. Take care of your body is the only place you have to live in." And Amy Abrahamian worked out 4 out of the 5 days that she was on a trip to visit her son. So that's a fantastic non-scale victory. So there are just tons and tons and tons of things that I could have, highlighted, but it was just a wonderful sampling of some incredible milestones that people are making. And it's so inspirational. We're going to kind of close it up a little bit early tonight because I think JC needs to be able to use his Zoom room. But I just wanted to thank everybody